Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? Today, I thought I would do kind of a smaller mini episode, if you will, to celebrate MLK. Our story starts only 4 days after Dr. King's assassination in 1968 and goes from hit songs to labor union protests. Come along for the ride as I ask, Dr. King's holiday, how did that happen? The first attempt to make Dr. King's birthday a holiday came only 4 days after his assassination. This happened when Congressman John Conyers introduced a bill to the floor of the House of Representatives requesting that his birthday be honored as a federal holiday. Nobody cared. Then, Congressman Conyers continued to do this year after year, slowly gaining more steam and adding more supporters. He introduced the same bill every time. The year after Dr. King was assassinated, the Congressional Black Caucus, or CBC, was founded, with Representative Conyers as a founding member. The CBC were not the only group pushing for this cause. Dr. King held a lot of sway with American workers' unions. Interestingly enough, there were speakers at the March of Washington who were presidents of labor unions. After Dr. King passed, workers from General Motors in New York, as well as hospital workers in the same area, protested and went on strike due to Dr. King not being given a holiday. It is often forgotten, but Dr. King was assassinated while on a trip to Memphis to support a strike by the members of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. By the mid-1970s, a lot of labor unions had instructed their employees to not come to work on Dr. King's birthday, regardless of there being legislation that dictated it. A man named Cleveland Robinson, who was president of Distributive Workers of America, was quoted as saying, I have been told by people in plant after plant in Detroit that on January 15th, if it is not in the bargaining contract, one does not come to work anyway. It is a holiday already." End quote. After 11 years bouncing around in Congress, the bill finally came up for a vote, and it was defeated by 5 votes, despite the support of then-President Jimmy Carter. The cause gained more help in the way of Stevie Wonder, who created a song called Happy Birthday, which is still a hit today, and dedicated it to the movement for creating Dr. King's birthday as a holiday. Mr. Wonder was quoted as saying, "I had a vision of the Martin Luther King Jr. birthday as a holiday. I mean, I saw it. I imagined it. I wrote about it because I imagined it, and I saw it, and believed it." End quote. There were many protests and rallies concerning Dr. King's birthday becoming a holiday, including a replication of Dr. King's March on Washington 15 years after his death. By the early 80s, the CBC had gathered more than 6 million signatures from the public in support of there being a holiday in King's name. The bill eventually passed in 1983, 78-22, and Ronald Reagan signed it into legislation. Even after becoming law, Southern states chose to honor the date in a different way. Due to Robert E. Lee's birthday being on January 19th, a lot of Southern states at the time, and some still today, celebrate that instead of honoring Dr. King and his legacy. It wasn't until the year 2000 that all states in America celebrated Dr. King's birthday. And at first, I've seen that quote a lot around, or that statement that was when it happened. I didn't know what it meant, and one website finally made it clear. Is basically what that meant is that was the time, the first time, and after they had passed the bill nationally, that every state in the country had a state holiday for Dr. King on their books, basically. So it took another 14 years. From them passing the bill to actually having legislation in every state that said people are going to have this as a holiday. That's what they mean by saying it wasn't until the year 2000. I saw it like 5 times, and I did not know what it meant. That's pretty much how Dr. King's holiday came to be. And now it's time for the roundup. The roundup. The roundup. And we're going to round it up. The first legislation to make Dr. King's birthday a federal holiday was introduced 4 days after he died. It wouldn't happen for 15 years. Unions played a larger part than I think anybody saw coming, and it would not be until the year 2000 that Dr. King's birthday would actually be recognized across all 50 states. Things I didn't know before. Even now, after celebrating this holiday for my whole life, I was still able to find things that I did not know. Dr. King was the first modern private citizen to have a holiday named after him. I did not know that. The bill to make his birthday a holiday was introduced only 4 days after he died. I think if you had asked me, I would have just assumed it happened in the 70s. Even Strom Thurmond voted for the bill to become a law. And if you know anything about politics and racism, that should be surprising. This one I thought was interesting. This had a lot to do with talking about how it wasn't recognized, the holiday wasn't recognized across the entire country until the year 2000. After the holiday was passed in Congress, the real trouble was getting states to pass it as a state law, which is what we said. Arizona was one of those states. 4 years after it being initially celebrated as a federal holiday, Arizona put the question on its ballot as a referendum, and it lost. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want that to be a holiday, and so this caused them to lose the Super Bowl that coming year, and it cost them estimated like $500 million. And so, lo and behold, 2 years later, they pass it. And it's just like, oh, so you only care about racism when it costs you $500 million. This was just an episode I thought I would make because today is Dr. King's holiday. I'm your host, Richard Dix. See you next week.